September 20th, 2017. An ordinary Wednesday morning suddenly turned into hell. This is an event without precedent. Without warning, one of the deadliest hurricanes in history struck. There's a humanitarian emergency here in Puerto Rico. Homes are pulverized, entire neighborhoods wiped out. This is just the worst scenario that could have happened. But that was only the beginning. Nearly 3,000 lives were lost. The longest blackout in United States history. Puerto Rico would never be the same. To understand the full horror of what happened that day, we need to go back 2 weeks earlier, to September 6, 2017. Hurricane Irma, a Category 5 monster, skirted the northern coast of Puerto Rico, leaving destruction in its wake. 4 people died, and over 900,000 were left without power. 50,000 had no water. The island was still recovering, barely catching its breath, when meteorologists detected something terrifying forming in the Atlantic. Another storm, and this one was heading straight for them. September 16, 2017. 580 nautical miles east of Barbados, a tropical depression formed from a wave off the west coast of Africa. Within hours, it had a name: Maria. At first, no one could predict what was coming, but the atmosphere had other plans. September 18, 2017. The afternoon sky darkened as conditions became explosively favorable. Maria underwent rapid intensification, her winds screaming to 160 miles per hour in just hours. By that night, she slammed into the island of Dominica as a Category 5, the most intense tropical cyclone worldwide in 2017. 70% of homes lost their roofs. Communications went dark. 65 people were killed. The island was annihilated, but Maria was not finished. She was just getting started. September 19, 2017. As Maria roared across the Caribbean Sea, Puerto Rico braced for impact. The Storm Prediction Center upgraded warnings. Governor Ricardo Rossello announced that 450 shelters would open. At least 2,000 people sought refuge, but many stayed home, exhausted from the constant barrage of warnings over the years. They had heard it all before: tornado watches, hurricane alerts. Most had been false alarms. This time, though, was different. This time, the monster was real. The island was already vulnerable. FEMA's Caribbean Distribution Center had been depleted. 83% of supplies and 90% of water, plus all tarps and cots, had been sent to the United States Virgin Islands for Hurricane Irma relief. Maria arrived before anything could be replenished. Puerto Rico was defenseless. On September 20th, 2017, at 6:15 in the morning, Maria made landfall near Yabucoa on Puerto Rico's southeast coast. Winds howled at 155 miles per hour, just below the Category 5 threshold. But the horror was not just the wind, it was everything that came with it. The eye wall, nearly 28 miles wide after an overnight replacement cycle, moved west-northwest across the entire island. For several endless hours, the storm unleashed its full fury. Trees were uprooted, weather stations destroyed, mobile phone towers ripped from their foundations. Wooden and tin roofs were torn off homes like paper. In some mountainous areas, wind speeds accelerated beyond 200 miles per hour, funneled and amplified by the steep terrain. Then came the rain. Over 48 hours, Maria dumped 15 to 20 inches of rain across most of the island. Some areas received 30 inches. 30 rivers reached major flood stage. 13 exceeded record flood levels. In Tuabaja, families climbed to their rooftops, surrounded by rising water from the La Plata River, desperately waiting for rescue. Across the island, more than 70,000 landslides tore through the mountains, destroying roads and bridges. Communities were cut off. Hospitals became unreachable. And then, the lights went out. 100% of Puerto Rico lost power. Every single resident. All 3.4 million people plunged into darkness. It was the longest blackout in U.S. history. 95% of cellular sites went down. Communication became nearly impossible. The island had been severed from the world. The destruction was biblical. The Federal Aviation Administration's weather radar, designed to withstand winds of up to 133 miles per hour, was obliterated. Wind sensors across the island were destroyed. Even the tools meant to measure the disaster could not survive it. The power grid, already fragile from decades of neglect, was effectively destroyed. Governor Rossello later estimated at least $90 billion in damage. It would become the 4th costliest tropical cyclone in history. By September 26th, 6 days after landfall, 95% of the island was still without power. Less than half had tap water. 95% had no cell phone service. Hospitals operated on failing generators. Patients on dialysis, ventilators, and oxygen machines faced life-threatening crises. Medical equipment was destroyed. Parts of buildings became uninhabitable. On October 6th, more than 2 weeks later, 89% still had no power. 44% had no water service. 58% had no cell service. 1 month after the hurricane, 88% of the island remained without electricity, about 3 million people. 29% lacked tap water, about 1 million people. People stood in lines for hours for water, food, and fuel. 720 of 1,100 gas stations were open, but fuel shortages were rampant. In November, the New York Times reported a spike in suicides. The rate doubled compared to the rate before Maria. Residents struggled with life in the dark, no electricity, no communication, no hope in sight. The death toll became one of the most contentious aspects of the disaster. Initially, the government reported only 64 deaths, but the truth was far more horrifying. In 2018, Governor Rossello commissioned George Washington University to conduct an independent study. The result was staggering. 2,975 people had died as a direct or indirect result of Hurricane Maria between September 2017 and February 2018. A separate Harvard University study estimated the toll at 4,645 deaths. Many died from lack of access to medical care. Without power, hospitals could not function. Oxygen machines stopped. Dialysis treatments were missed. Medications ran out. About 1/3 of the additional deaths arose from delayed or no access to healthcare, most likely from infrastructure damage. International relief organization Oxfam intervened for the first time on American soil since Hurricane Katrina. The Federal Emergency Management Agency mobilized. The hospital ship USNS Comfort arrived in San Juan on October 3rd. By November 8th, its staff had treated 1,476 patients, including 147 surgeries and 2 births. Over 11,000 airmen, soldiers, sailors, and Marines from units around the United States mobilized to help. National Guard troops from Connecticut, Georgia, Iowa, Illinois, Kentucky, Missouri, New York, Rhode Island, and Wisconsin were deployed. But the damage was done. The cascading failures of the power grid, water systems, transportation, and communication networks had created a humanitarian catastrophe. Around 130,000 Puerto Ricans left the island between July 2017 and July 2018, many as a direct result of Maria's devastation. Families were torn apart. Communities disappeared. Most Puerto Ricans, though, were committed to staying to recover, no matter how long it took. But 3 years after the storm, they still needed massive support. About 80% of the island's crop value was wiped out by Maria, representing a $607 million loss in agricultural yields, a devastating blow to an island with high poverty and already fragile food security. More than 166,000 residential buildings were damaged or destroyed. 7 churches were leveled. Schools, hospitals, and businesses were all reduced to rubble. Hurricane Maria became the second deadliest hurricane in United States history and the deadliest to ever strike Puerto Rico. With over $91 billion in damages, it ranks as one of the most expensive natural disasters on record. The scars left by Maria remain visible today, a haunting reminder of nature's power and the resilience of those who endured it. Puerto Rico has risen to its feet once more. But September 20th, 2017 left a wound that will never fully heal.